What is happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of Coffee and Coaching. And I got the man from T-Town, Mr. Josh Gerig. What's up, brother?
Hey, going on, man? Just
how are you?
I'm good. It's I think today is Thursday. I don't know, the days of the week, you know how they are.
I have to think about it we have the daily accountability group, and we got a group that Nick Nanton and Kinder and them started a long time ago. And every time, we post in there after what is today? Is it today Thursday? Oh yeah, today's Thursday.
What's Thursday? It starts with a T.
It doesn't matter. So what's up, man? How are things in Tulsa?
Tulsa is great. It's not raining for a change today, which is it was not supposed to rain yesterday at about, I don't know, rush hour 5 o'clock. I'm jamming in the office downtown, and we get a little pop-up shower that soaks everybody on their commute home. So I worked late last night, which allowed me not to participate in the soggy ride home. It was literally like a half hour. So, but no, things are good. Real estate is definitely the buzzword here. It's not slowing down. It's kind of like everywhere in the country,
Yeah. Tulsa's awesome, man. Obviously being up there, what was it, a couple weeks ago? And, one thing that I really noticed was how supportive the entire community and all of the people there in Tulsa really were. We rode, coming out of Keystone and riding all the way up past,
Skytook, I think.
Skytook all the way up there, But what was amazing is just the support of people, because there's a lot of rural acreage properties up there.
Yes.
And where a lot of the homes set back off the road. But how many people had brought chairs, canopies, trucks, tailgates, ice chests, and just sitting there, just cheering everybody on as we were flying by. And it was awesome. Kudos to the city. I think they held a hell of an event. I know it's what are they contracted for a couple more years there in Tulsa with it?
2023 is the last year, I believe.
Yeah.
And there's talk that they're going to try and see what they can do to host maybe like a 70.3 and maybe something to do with the Ironman circuit. But that's obviously, we're 2 years out from fulfilling that contract. So
sure.
But yeah, it's spot on. We were happy to have you here to do the 140.6. That was a grueling event in the rain. So that's what I'm saying.
Rain the whole time.
it was like a 2-week stretch of just, crappy weather. But that was obviously, I volunteered for the event, and
yep.
Tulsa, it was nice to hear a lot of the people from around the country hear them say warm things, just like what you said about it. So.
Yeah. From a volunteer perspective, and thank you for doing that. And it was really cool. I know they were struggling to get volunteers out there, but I think, they had great support. The aid stations were full. It was really cool. What, from your viewpoint, from a volunteer perspective, what were some, big takeaways for you?
Just really the camaraderie of actually having the team, the team of volunteers, which was so cool. Talking to, everybody that you were working with. So to be clear, for everybody out there, I was working the finish line from 7 p.m. to 12 p.m. and ended up actually working until about 1 p.m. time. We broke things down. We had some folks that crossed the line a little later, but it was just really cool because from my perspective, a lot of the volunteers weren't from Tulsa. They were from Houston or San Diego or Jersey, or it was really cool, and everybody just kind of hit it off. And so one really neat thing from a perspective of volunteering is just seeing that, at the finish line, the gratification of of every athlete cross the line, and know that, especially for me, you gave me the bug. 2023 is when I officially doing it here in Tulsa. So um, it's not an event you just show up and do, right? So
No.
being a former runner and still a current runner, there's months of effort and work that go behind it, much like anything. I mean, much like what we're going to dive into a little bit here with real estate today. It was really from a perspective of seeing just how hard everybody worked, not only the volunteers, but the athletes especially, and cross that line and just see that sheer emotion. That was from my perspective, probably the most rewarding.
That's so cool. You were at a great spot. Were you? So Josh was at the finish line, which when I came through, and it's when you for all of you guys, if you've never experienced it, it's bright lights. You can't see when you're coming down the chute there at the end, and you cross the finish line. You can't see nothing. I mean, it's just bright lights. And as soon as I stepped through the lights, there's Josh right there. I was like, "Oh, what's up?" But were you able to be there all the way until the final runner came across the line?
So the final runner, I don't know if you followed the news story, but there was a nurse here, and I believe she's a nurse. Don't hold me to her occupation, but she was, I think, a COVID ICU nurse who just seen a lot of bad stuff over the last 12, 18 months. Obviously, she crossed at 4 p.m. and had the will to not quit, even though technically she got a DNF, didn't finish. Her story has been circulated. I've seen not only through our local
4 in the morning. She finished at 4 a.m.
4 a.m. The only people that were there were the breakdown crew and her family and friends, like cheering her on. And so that was really, really cool to hear that afterwards. I left. I think it was at about 12:45, 1 o'clock. Our crew leader, said, "Hey, really appreciate everything," and just kind of dismissed us accordingly. And so we seen a few of the late finishers just right at 17 hours, whatever the
most emotional
was. Yeah,
it is the most emotional. It is the true warriors that, like, knowing that they're racing up against the clock and they're pushing their bodies to every ounce that they have to get across that finish line. And it is, if you guys have ever have an opportunity, if you compete, stay around and watch the last finishers come across. If you have the opportunity to volunteer, get there in the final, stay there till the end. You will become emotional. It's just, it is so powerful. Just seeing what, just the human spirit and what people are doing their I mean, you feel their emotions as they're coming across, and it really is. It gives me goosebumps just talking about it, thinking about it.
The percentage, real quick to wrap that up, the percentage of people, I would say the last 20, 30 participants, athletes that cross the line, the percentage of those that actually just go to the line and collapse or need assistance, like in a wheelchair, I would say, it's well over 50%. And at that point in time, it's not obviously the physical body, is broken down, but it's just the sheer willpower of the mind that's got them there. And that's incredible to see. So just to add to your point, that it's powerful to see. But
yeah, it really is. It's so cool. So give man, Josh is a numbers guy. So I love talking when we have our conversations, because there is an emotional side to business, right? There is that element that we do want that there needs to be feeling in business, but there it's also math. Business is just math. Sometimes we confuse it with a lot of drama, and you got to be able to separate the drama. And when you're able to do that, the math is really easy. So I love talking, business with numbers people that get numbers, but you don't see a lot of that in real estate. So being able to chat with Josh and get a little different perspective, I think is really cool. I would love give a little bit of background. Go take us pre real estate. Go back a little bit and kind of give a little bit of backstory about yourself.
Yeah. So grew up on a family farm in Southeast Michigan. from there, I've been exposed to real estate my whole life. My aunt and uncle had been very, very successful in Southeast Michigan, multiple counties, right? Actually, the bottom tier of counties. So like if you think of Monroe, Lenawee, and Hillsdale County, those three counties right below Detroit and Ann Arbor. My aunt was very well known and had a Coldwell Banker franchise that she built up and sold off. I think it was around 2004. So just osmosis, if you asked me when I was 18 and graduating high school, where the heck I would be if real estate was like the top three, it would be like nowhere on my radar. And it wasn't. So,
Yeah.
so, being a numbers guy, fast forward, go to college. I actually thought I would want to pursue something in agriculture. So I went to college in Iowa. Had the opportunity to go to South Dakota State and spend a semester there. Thought maybe I was going to run track, and obviously being a D1 athlete, that's a full-time job. It wasn't going to be something I was going to do in the Olympics. So back to Iowa I go. So I studied finance, actually. That my degree is in business management and finance, and where that led me progressively from the time I was 18 to about 26. I got very heavily involved and actually got my Series 3 and 30 in the financial markets. So I rode through '08. I was on the futures side. Kind of brought me back to my agricultural roots. I worked on the floor at the Kansas City Board of Trade. And so, when you're talking numbers, it's like
That's cool.
the old conversation, like that picture. I don't know if you all can see that. That's actually the bond pit in Chicago, and I've been there several times. One of my personal mentors is a very, very successful floor trader in Chicago. Him and his son and his partner, they've built this heck of a business. Anyways, we're getting off track, back on track. Numbers just came naturally. If you couldn't hold 3 phone conversations and shout out numbers because the open outcry system was all, vocal and hand signals. It was really a rush. I hit the business in '05. And that's right when the computer industry was taking the open outcry to all basically computers. I don't know if you can see it or not, but behind me, I have some of my trading platforms up, just checking on the markets. You can do this from anywhere in the world, and that's the beauty of technology, right? Much like what we're seeing in real estate.
Yeah, 100%.
So heavy finance background, had the opportunity to work for a large international firm, just decided corporate America was not my grind, not my jam. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, a numbers guy, and actually when I was 21, started another business completely outside of real estate with a business partner, father figure, mentor of mine, and grew that very successfully. And actually in the recent years, just sold a lot of that off. And so there was a void, right? So what's Josh going to do with his life? Well, as most things in life happen, just, to stumble across a friend who's like, you might be really good at this real estate stuff. And oh, by the way, I did an internship with this, private equity commercial real estate firm. Why don't you give them a call? And so I'm like, yeah, I don't need that, right? But something just said to call them, and lo and behold, that's how I entered the real estate world, and it ended up not actually in houses. It ended up being in farmland, transitional development, and working with ultra high net worth clients. I mean, the true story. We would look at properties sometimes, and I'd have to, meet a client at the airport to get picked up in their, private jet plane. We'll fly, hour and a half away, go look at the property, jump on, go back, and you cover so many miles in a day, and it's only like 11 in the morning, and I'm like, holy crap, you drove that. It would take
forever.
You'd be there the whole day doing that.
Yeah.
So, I'm a big Grant Cardone guy. So when you talk about the compression of time and how a jet doesn't make financial sense, it doesn't. But when you start to put the time factor into it, much like we're talking about numbers, that made a lot of sense. Just first
turn on time. Was it just because that was kind of what you knew growing up? Is that kind of why you gravitated to the agricultural side, real estate in the beginning?
Yeah, so it actually was just a sheer opportunity that popped up in my lap. I did end up making the phone call, obviously, as we've picked up on it, and had a very happy, successful career with the firm for 5.5 years. And great people. The founder and the owner of that firm started and sold off originally a company that he started. It was the largest agricultural asset management company in North America. And having a daily relationship with a figure like that, somebody who's wrote several books, somebody who's been on CNBC, Fox Business News, I really was.
What was the biggest thing for you with that relationship that really, what changed most for you with that relationship?
First and foremost, just going back to being blessed to have somebody mentor you in a capacity like that is just an extraordinary experience. I mean, the people, to answer your question, I guess for me, it was just the perspective, right? So there's always mindset to everything. And we were talking about, triathlons and Ironman early on, and business is no different. Anything in life is no different. It's your mindset that determines your actions, which is what ultimately gets us from point A to B or wherever you want to go, right? It's not always about money. It's definitely not always about money for me. It's about fulfillment. And this gentleman he encouraged a lot of that. I actually went to his personal house one time. I got to actually, get a tour and a large house, and he had a library. As much people talk about like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and I'm a Ray Dalio guy. He has a huge library, and so I actually got to see what books his library had in it. And I was like, some of these are like mindset based, and so even before I started in that career path in real estate, I had kind of gravitated towards the Brian Tracy, Jim Rohn, just again sheer happenstance, like what they were saying resonated in a way in a point in my life that it was like there's a bigger picture out here than just what I'm thinking, and it's massive. And so ultimately getting exposed to processes and having that learning curve compressed from decades to just literally years and months, being exposed and mentored by an individual like that is inarguably, a top figure in the industry in the world. Literally, I mean, would fly around the world and talk to groups, and it's just that capacity and that kind of mentorship and just learning the things that they do versus what everybody else is doing is really powerful. So that's probably the biggest takeaway. There's so much. I mean, I could dive deep into a lot of areas where it was like, man.
I'm always curious, and I love that, because that's usually what you hear. It's usually perspective. It's usually mindset. It's usually being able to think bigger, right? And sometimes we need an example and it, to expand that thinking, right? It's no different than, you like, man, I can't, I mean, how in the hell am I going to get a 5K, right? Let alone a full marathon. And then it's like, okay, well, shit, how am I going to get 50 miles? Okay, well, how am I going to get 100, right? But you see examples, so it's possible. And I love that. Are there anything, characteristics or things that you picked up that you still use or think about to this day from that mentorship, that relationship?
Yeah, I would lie if I said I didn't. It's really kind of funny because I'm probably a mold, as most people are, of several mentors and
Sure.
my business partner and family, obviously. And but the understanding of time. So the calendar first approached my life when I saw his calendar, and him sitting across from a high profile business person who was begging them to stay, him to stay at a meeting it longer. And he's like, sorry, no, I got another one, and that word no, and being okay to say that, but yet being so generous with his time and saying yes to a lot of other things. That was probably the biggest takeaway for me. I mean, my wife will tell you I still suck at time management from time to time. I'm a DI if you're on the disc profile test. So it's like, like that's probably honestly one of my biggest downfalls is I try to take on too much at once. And from the, perspective of having good intentions and growing, there's power and focus. My mentor Robert in Chicago, he says that all the time. He goes, Josh, there's power and focus. Go, an inch wide and 10 miles deep. And so, that that was probably the biggest takeaway I would say.
I love that.
From a
Power of
perspective.
focus. That's awesome.
We grew up, the owner of the firm, we grew up in a similar capacity. Ironically, we grew up about an hour and a half, 2 hours apart from each other. Obviously, multiple generations apart, but like, grew up on family farms, went to college from, basically the Northeast to Iowa. There was just a lot of parallels that we had and shared in common, that there was always a natural bond right away. And to this day, we don't communicate as nearly as much as I would like to say that we do, but he's still a gentleman I respect very, very much. And
That's so cool.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So kind of fast forward to, hey, you're hanging out there, agricultural, how the hell did you get to Tulsa?
Yeah, so I actually was in Tulsa when I worked for the International Grain Trading Company, and right before I said, yeah, corporate America not for me, I met my wife. So God bless her, I got her to move to Iowa for, a few years. She's from the South. The first year I think was like the second or third mildest winter ever in 150-year history. And so she's like, oh, this ain't bad. The second year was like the coldest in history.
You're
So
like, like, hang on.
she's like, this winter stuff, nope, I'm out. So anyways, there's some life components that happen. And so at that point in time, it was just kind of like, you have stages in life, right? You have seasons in life. And so I was getting to the point where I was ready to make a move to start my own thing. And when I say start my own thing, I obviously had one good company, Promised Land, going with another business partner. And that was a business that was 90% passive. So that was the idea when we started it. We wanted to be able to build it, step back, generate cash flow, build equity, as most businesses do. So that's what we were successful at doing after 14, 15 years. So I made the jump to move to Tulsa. And at that time I said, if I go to Tulsa, I'm going to start my own real estate company. And so that's what I did. I actually came to Tulsa not knowing pretty much a soul. I didn't know anything about the real estate market here. Never did residential real estate besides what my aunt and uncle had, through osmosis taught me back home. And
where did I think this is a good lesson for a lot of people, that are thinking about, man, I want to do something on my own, right? I just this current circumstance or situation is not for me. Now, some people are great lifelong employees, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But then there are some that, man, like I know I could do more. And so like for you coming into a market, about to step into real estate, not like cold, like not like not stepping into anything, like talk us through that process and from a mindset perspective, what really for you that compelled you to have that, courage, because that's really what it is, the courage to go through that process and make that jump.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's planning, right? I'm a numbers guy, as we talked. I've always held detailed financial records for any enterprise I've been involved with, small ownership, large ownership. And so that mindset of actually tackling something like that could be daunting and scary really isn't that daunting and scary when you break it down into bite-sized pieces, right? I mean, it's kind of like what we talk about in our mastermind group, John, with everybody is, get really wide and then get narrow. What's your focus this week, this quarter, this month? And it all contributes to the bigger picture. So I knew going into this, I would have to have some financial reserves, right? So how long could I sustain without selling X number of homes, buildings, whatever? Because, right, I'm coming from a background in commercial real estate where the average, the first deal I ever did out of real estate, getting a license, was $1.4 million, right? I mean, residential agents don't do those kind of deals on a regular basis unless you're in New York and Chicago. So Tulsa at that time, I think our average price of the home was somewhere like around $170,000, $180,000. So do the math backwards, right? I need to sell X number. Yep. But I also had to build a clientele base up and and figure that out. So when I joined a brokerage here, before I started my own brokerage, what I figured out is that, you know, I had a lot of time on my hands. I had limited financial resources that I wanted to conserve, because at some point, if it doesn't work, you got to pull the plug and say, hey, you know, Warren Buffett speaks highly of this. You know, what rule number one of investing: don't lose money. Rule number two: see rule number one, right? So,
Right.
I had that core capital, that core equity I was not willing to sacrifice, and I had that opportunity to use it to build something. And so my broker at the time said, do you realize that the number one agent in Boston last year picked up the phone book and just started cold calling? And I'm like, got a lot of time. There's a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
we you know, we could just get on the phones and start jamming. And at that time, I had been listening to a lot of real estate podcasts for about a year, and so I was getting in tune with the residential market. And so basically at that point, I just picked up the phone book and started cold calling people and said, you know, here's what I've got. Here's you know, here's what I can help you with. Are you interested or are you not? You know, just a sheer, genuine, how may I help you call. And surprisingly, you dial a lot of phone numbers, but you do get some fruit when you look up at the tree. So that was probably my first year in real estate, just, you know, working that. Obviously, from there, I learned the industry residentially pretty fast. You know, I learned that there are other lead generation tools out there, right? So if you invest in them, you're looking to get $1 put in for what, a $3 out return, or whatever the math is. I wish it was that good that right now,
Sure.
but it's not. So just going back to the numbers of tracking what's working and what's not. So at that point in time, I was getting busier and just kept adding from there. So
Yeah.
really
What yeah, I think, you know, you look at it from, you know, a risk reward. I mean, you took that approach, right? You took that financial, you know, hey, here's I mean, you look at it like a business, right? Which is building an asset, which is, you know, one of the key things, you know, building assets is critical to achieve, you know, the freedom that we're all after, right? Financial freedom. And so making that move, going there, what are you know, now kind of seeing? Because you look at trends, you look at numbers, you look at kind of what's going on. What are you kind of seeing, anticipating with the market, maybe on a larger scale, but also on a local level?
Yeah, so local level, we're starting to see that change happen. So I would say our change in Tulsa happened from an inventory tightening standpoint, from about, you really felt the squeeze December, January, and more so in January. What I mean is unfortunately you had a lot of FHA, VA qualified buyers that, just because of financial capacity, didn't have that extra term and condition that would make their offer lucrative to a seller. And you also had sellers that were like, man, this is a crazy market. I don't know where I'd move to if I can't buy another house. And so locally, that market from December to January compressed and changed. And then there was a pause where it was just, the appraisals weren't catching up fast enough. And it was just a very, very unique time. I don't think anybody in this business for 40 years has seen it. Now we're starting to see that dynamic change again, where we're starting to see the transaction of the business pick back up. And what I mean is, seasonally it's going to happen anyways, but we're starting to see, you know, locally, I think, I want to say deals are getting easier, but they're becoming more common. Like, and when I say more common is like, you're not getting the 30 offers and 30, 50,000 over list price in extreme cases. You're getting some more realistic numbers that are more in line with the past recent appraisals. Big picture, I don't see this tightness going away for another, you know, 8 to 12 months at least. I think, talking with some, I have a partner, we invest in commercial real estate, just talking to some of our local lenders, you know, there is word on the street that interest rates are starting to kind of creep back up, which I think will help balance supply and demand, but it probably will take a full point or two to go higher before we get any kind of a slowdown from that. Aside of that, I would say, and I'm not projecting an economic recession or a slowdown, but I think that would be the other catalyst that could help balance supply and demand. So
Sure.
8 to 12 months, I'm not seeing anything that's going to change our market drastically. And I think that's probably going to be true nationally too. I don't really think we're an isolated market. We're, if anything, a undervalued market that a lot of outside of Oklahoma residents are starting to see and float to or flood into the state. So
Yeah. It's kind of the common theme in the conversation with a lot of agents across the country that I know that pay attention to the market, the real estate market at a very high level. A lot of the same kind of seeing and being kind of time frames that you're kind of talking about. It almost feels like, hey, I think we could ride through this for the next 12 months and then all bets off. It's kind of what it feels like to what can happen. What for you guys right now on the real estate side, what is it that you guys are the most excited about?
I mean, we're excited just of, one of the things that we're talking about coffee and coaching here today is so like, the mentorship and the advice and the sheer plan that you've helped us put forward. I mean, I'm excited to continue to execute that. I would say this year, compared to where we wanted to be, we're not there, but I think giving some external forces, there are it's a SWOT analysis, right? There's things that we couldn't control that happen.
Sure.
But you always reset, readjust, and that whole path and trajectory is just what's exciting to me, because I think over the long haul, you're definitely able to achieve what you're wanting to do, and that's what excites me, and growth, investing into people that are excited to have the same vision you are, giving back, in a lot of capacities, giving back, right? Volunteering, but also being a part of the community, investing in the people that are with you. Those things excite me. Biggest thing that excites me about our company is as we've talked, we kind of want to segue into the commercial side a little bit. And so that development is on our radar and plans being put in place. And so there's a lot to be excited about, but I would say those are the top three that we're most key on.
Yeah, it's so cool. And talk to us a little bit about the power of kind of collaboration. I know you had kind of mentioned
Hey,
can you hear me?
I don't know if I can hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me? Uh-oh.
Hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you. Can you hear me?
Cool.
Heart technology.
What just happened? I can't hear you at all.
Uh-oh. Let's see. Can you hear me now? Gotta love technology. Might have lost him here.
Man, technology, not my high point.
I can hear you, so we know that's not the issue.
There you go. I don't know what just happened, dude. Like,
we're all good. It's all good.
I'm really sorry. I just messed up a lot of this interview.
No worries, man. It's all good. It's all good. I think what's funny is that it's like the dog came in, the cat came in a while ago. I think 2019, people would be kind of panicking, hey, whoa, I'm sorry about that. I think we're just so normal. It's like, hey, whatever. It's just like everybody's cool with it.
I had our we've got a couple dogs and a cat, obviously, but our German Shepherd, like that's my baby, and so she was not wanting to go out here. So literally, like hitting, like sign in, and like she's like right here, like chewing on her toy. Ugh.
Hey, I do. So I guess the question, and I would love kind of your viewpoint on it. You know, we were talking kind of the power of collaboration, and within our, you know, kind of our community, we have, you know, our quarterly mastermind called the Kitchen Table that you and Carolyn, you know, obviously have been a part of. But even inside of that, you guys have connected. There's a, you know, a handful of you that are really becoming more accountable to each other. I would love for you to kind of share and expand on that. I think that's a really, I love what you guys are doing. And so I would love just kind of your 2 cents on that.
Glad to. I don't know where we're at on time, but as far as I got more time for you, man. But yeah, so Adam and T, we've actually, it was T's idea to put us together, like just, hey, let's jump on a quick call Friday mornings. You know, they're East Coast time, I'm Central time, so you know, we're working it through a Zoom call to collaborate on what's working, what's not working, you know, and it's really kind of cool to compare and contrast, you know, within our mastermind group with individuals who are doing the same thing, trying to get very similar objectives to where you're going, not only within, you know, your business, but, you know, personally, right? We're all parents and have families, and it's kind of a cool collaboration, not only to dive 90% deep into the real estate side, but just like, hey, you know, how's the family? What's going on there? We've kind of put this mastermind in place to compare and contrast notes, almost to test market ideas that we have across a broad spectrum. And so that's really kind of cool. And it just started with a conversation in one of our mastermind groups, and T's like, hey, we should do this. And I'm like, sign me up. Like, let's put it down. You know, and it's super effective, super cool. I'm excited. We've literally only been doing it for a few weeks, and so like what's come out of it so far, it has been extraordinary. So really.
Yeah, I think it, you know, collaboration, but I think there's also a piece of accountability to where you guys are, you know, kind of a little, you know, gamifying it a little bit to have some accountability with each other, keeping it fun. What just kind of reminded me of Frank Shamrock's concept in his, you know, in his MMA studios and his classes, is that he has this concept called the plus, minus, and equal. And the plus is obviously somebody that you look up to, right? And that is kind of a mentor that is ahead of where you're at. Minus is somebody that you're above, that you can mentor and shorten the learning process for them. And then the equal, to where somebody's, you know, really right there with you, pushing each other, and the accountability. And I really see that you embody that concept, right? Just even sharing through this conversation. And Definitely. So I think that's what's cool about our group, is that there's a lot of plus, minus, and equals within the group. And then, you know, you found a couple of equals that you guys are holding each other accountable and really embracing that concept. So it's one of my favorites, you know, a plus, minus, and equal in any equity of our life. And so it's just a good checkup, you know, hey, within the real estate space, who's your plus, you know, who are you, you know, who's a minus that you're a plus to, and then, you know, who are you being accountable with? And it's really, really awesome. And, you know, I just see you guys, that when I heard you guys were kind of putting that together, I was like, yep, they, you know, they're really embodying that concept.
We got a little friendly group, you know, kind of like competition, because like, you know, we're all competitive, so you got to make it a competition.
You do.
But yeah, like the accountability every week is like, you know, contacts, you know, who's got the number of contacts, and to hold it accountable. And we really just literally started it, and so we've upped the ante, and you know, put some things in place that are going to make it even more exciting. But the accountability you speak of, it's really cool, because you know, when you have a bad week, you know, we all get those bad weeks, but then it kind of is like a reality check, and it's like, hey, you know, pick your teammate up, dust them off, say, get out there and hit it. There's no sympathy for whiners. It's just get it done. And that's really ultimately, if you boiled all the numbers down, strip everything else away, it's really just sheerly about execution, right? It's just doing what you say you're going to do and execute the plan. If you aren't getting the results more than likely that you are 110% wanting to see, there are some external forces that you can't control, right? But at the end of the day, if you hustle and grind and you really truly have mentors like yourself and folks that we're mastermind with in our group, there's no real excuse. It stops with you. Look in the mirror and say, hey, did I do what I say I was going to do today? And that's all you got to ask yourself. The answer is not even needing to be said.
Yeah, you do. You really do. Brother, well, I really appreciate it. Anything that you want to make sure we touch on before we wrap up today's episode of Coffee and Coaching?
Man, we touched on a lot of things. Touched on a lot of good nuggets here too. And there's plenty more we could go deep into, but no, I would say tune in, click follow Coffee and Coaching. That's where you're going to pick up more of these nuggets, and we'd love to be back, obviously, on another show. You've got a huge audience, so I know that would be probably a while back, but maybe we could dive into something a little more later on.
We'll get your better half in with us next time for sure.
Yeah, she's got that moneymaker. I don't, so
she's the good balance to you, right? The DI, she's the good balance.
She really is. I mean, I guess that's the last thing we could hit on. There's I don't remember if it was Roosevelt or Churchill, but there's a good woman behind every man, strong man. And I'm not saying I'm that person, but she's definitely a great balance for us, not only personally, but business and all the above. So.
Yeah. Really cool. Well, brother, I appreciate you jumping in, taking the time. I know you guys are rocking and rolling there in Tulsa. And so I really appreciate you jumping in and hanging out with us this morning, and definitely we'll have to do it again.
Absolutely, man. Well, take care. Have an awesome day, and looking forward to it.
You got it, man. Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys on the next show.